And we are back. Rising Ground as an organization is providing children, adults, and families with the resources and skills needed to help them rise above adversity and positively direct their lives. The organization has been at the forefront of evolving community leads, as well as becoming a leader in utilizing result-driven, evidence-based practices. Here with us now is Rising Ground CEO Alan Mucatel and Senior Vice President of Diversity, Fairness, and Belonging, Travis Rodgers. And welcome both.
Thank you.
Good to see you.
Good to be here.
In person, right? Talk to me, Alan, a little bit about what Rising Ground is all about. I gave a little intro, but you can take us a little deeper.
Sure. I think we're a little bit of an unknown force here in New York City. We're a large multi-service, human service organization with over 100 different programs in 80 plus different locations across the borough, all the boroughs of the city. And what we're doing is helping people to move upward and forward in their lives by providing them with a solid foundation from which to grow. And we do that in a number of different ways in a number of different programs, whether it's on the child welfare side, foster care prevention, supporting survivors of intimate partner violence, helping young people who have come to this country unaccompanied as they settle into the United States. So a wide range of services directed to lots of New Yorkers.
Travis, a little bit about the work you do.
Thank you for that question. So I run our Diversity, Fairness, and Belonging department here at Rising Ground. And it pours into our staff, into the people that we serve, in that we represent a large swath of people across all races, genders, gender identities, socioeconomic statuses. But the more important thing is that our staff actually reflects the people that we work with and that we serve. So there's a better understanding of how we can provide them with better services.
Yeah. When we talk about the community, obviously a lot of different needs, right? So let's unpack a little bit. Let's talk about youth and youth development. I know that's work that you do as well. Talk about how we're impacting youth here.
So let me give you one example where we have a very large presence working with young people, and that is supporting individuals who are identified as runaway and homeless youth. And at Rising Ground, we run a number of transitional independent living programs scattered across New York, including several here in the Bronx. And those provide longer-term residence for individuals as they begin to plan their future towards adulthood and settling in obtaining employment and obtaining housing. We also run in Queens, the drop-in center, so that's working directly with young people who are on the streets. In Brooklyn, we run a mental health hub, again, for young people who are on the streets. So we have a very large presence in supporting a truly vulnerable sector of young people here in the city. We do a lot of other work with young people as well, but that's one area.
Yeah, well, you take a look at those particular areas. Are you seeing any numbers that are continuing to rise in population?
Yes. So one of the issues that we face here in New York is we know we have a large homeless population in general, right? And that's being influenced as well as individuals who are coming here as asylum seekers too. So there's a lot of stressors, of course, on the system. Our focus is on young people, and there's a continuous need to support them because those, unfortunately, the dynamics that play out for a number of young people remain the same. There are challenges around acceptance with their family members. There are challenges around not getting the supports they feel they needed in their home life, and that continues, sadly, to bring young people to the streets.
Let me walk into your ballpark for a minute. So if I'm coming in as a young person, right, and I'm dealing with the issues of life, I come to this organization and I see somebody who looks like me. How much does that make a difference?
It makes a huge difference. We know that young people connect better with people that look like them, particularly if you talk about black males. They connect better with older black men who can guide them along their way, really reinforce some of the educational needs that they have, or really get them off of the streets and provide them with services, or that language connection. Having someone that speaks the same language as you, from the same dialect, goes a long way in really crossing some of those barriers that might prevent some struggles there. And then as an organization, we pour into doing anti-bias and anti-racism training. So even though I look just like you, our shared experiences might not always be the same, or I might be packing some other things inside of me that I've taken on from the system. So we as an organization do all the training to help you get out of that piece so that you can better serve the people that we work with.
Yeah. It's almost like when we talk about Rising Ground, it's really digging way deep beneath the surface, right? Because there's a lot of surface things that people are dealing with, but at the same time, there's really some real highly, deeply entrenched things that our community is dealing with from, you talk about youth, talk about education, things like that. On the educational front, what are you seeing?
Well, I think what you're touching on here is just the notion of trauma that is really a part of
Prevalent.
so many
Right.
experiences, whether or not you're talking about racial-related trauma, sure, poverty, mental health concerns, poor housing situations, lack of access to other services. So there's a whole array of challenges that, whether we're talking about young people or families or single adults, are experiencing, and of course, an overlay of poverty that elevates the concerns that we have. And so we are seeing people who are coming to us with very significant needs, and what we try to do is help them. First, we meet them where they're at. We look to support them in concrete ways, and then also provide them with the skills that allow them, in whatever programs we're talking about, allow them to move forward in their lives.
Yeah, sensitivity. I mean, trauma is a big teacher for a lot. Let me hear from you, both of you. How have you been impacted as an organization since COVID? I mean, COVID has had detrimental effects on a lot of organizations. What's it been like for you?
I'll take that one. Travis fortunately wasn't with us for the COVID period, so he got to miss that experience.
I have a different perspective.
But he has a different perspective for sure. Well, first, we know that there is, especially for young people, but also for adults, there is a huge mental health residual component that we are experiencing across society, right? We know people are carrying with them tremendous built-up anxieties, phobias, just really, we are starting to see, we see it on the streets. Listen, I'm a native New Yorker, and we are seeing things today that we weren't seeing as much, perhaps. Maybe they were always there, maybe they just became more clear to us, but I also think that they've been elevated as a result of COVID. We also are seeing a different work environment that we had before, right? There's lots of tensions about where people want to work, how they want to work, and that is impacting the human service, social service sector as well, and we're no different in that regard. So we're trying to accommodate individual needs, not individual needs, but accommodate collective needs of employees. We want to be a competitive place to work, and yet a lot of our work, the very nature of human services, is to be directly present with somebody.
Right.
So being remote doesn't work always so well in that case. So that's a huge challenge for our world.
Absolutely.
And I would say, in my time here at Rising Ground, just this week we had staff going through undoing racism training, and we also have a racial trauma group that's going through training as well. And they've highlighted some of the things that Alan pointed out as far as the mental health issues that our youth are facing, and some of the systemic oppression that occurred that kind of bubbled up and boiled over as a result of COVID. And so they were in their meeting today just really unpacking the systems and where we fit in the systems and how we can intervene for our students, while also still working through the things that they had to work through during COVID. So we have to remember that our staff has their own challenges as a result of COVID, while also trying to accommodate them and be competitive in the workforce.
Right, yeah. I mean, it's amazing because the dynamic has shifted. You know, let's just be honest. The dynamic has shifted. It's a hard job to provide services. Hard job sometimes to meet the needs of that have changed, that have forced all of us to have to really, change. What do you think for yourself in the organization that you're making the most impact?
I would say that we make our most impact in the direct spot, right? That our work is, I mean, of course, when you sit in the position of a CEO, you're thinking about the collective impact of your organization. And the truth is the impact of this organization is vast and impressive. We're supporting close to 25,000 individuals in any given moment. So a really large impact. But what does that really mean? It's the aggregation of individual engagement, individual advancement, individual achievements. And I think we make tremendous impact in those one-on-one moments. And they can be somebody learning to address a challenge they had in their life, somebody improving a relationship that has gone wrong, somebody acquiring some skill that's going to allow them to be more gainfully employed. There's any number of things that happen along the way, but that's, I think, where we are. I think it's the thing that we're most proud of. And I would say one of the things we do when we start meetings at our organization, we always ask this following question. Can somebody share a success, just one success? Why? Because it always roots us, it grounds us back in why the reason we're doing this work is to help the individuals that we're supposed to support.
Yeah, success makes a whole lot of difference. I mean, I think it enhances the work that you do, but at the same time, it also is a point that you've made the difference in the life of somebody. And when we talk about, the changing economy. We talk about, a changing workforce. What has been the hardest thing for you to adapt to in all of this?
Well, I think part of the challenge for us today is, like many employers, is to find people who are drawn to our work. I want to say this, for somebody who really wants to have a direct impact working with, whether it's young people, with adults, or with families, if that's work that is of interest to you, then a place like Rise and Ground can actually deliver that experience to you in the way that you want it to happen. So I think one of the challenges for us is to connect with individuals who want to do that work. We can then support them and provide them with the right environment, the training, the encouragement, the camaraderie that allow them to grow and thrive in a career that can help other people.
The conversation, when we talk about diversity and equity and fairness, right? This is a conversation that we know has been ongoing for years, right? Sometimes I sit in the seat and say, how hard is it for somebody to just, get on board? You understand what it is. But from your lens, what's it like having the conversation, and what's it like as you look through the lens of other people who are saying, maybe some for the first time, like, I didn't get it?
That's a great question. So you have to take a multi-pronged approach, right? It's a little bit of whack-a-mole. You have to have the patience to really sit down and explain to people what the issues are. I like to make numbers personal for people, so I create the big picture, then boil it down to a personal story, either my own or someone else that I know, so that people can truly get it. You have to have investment from your organization. Lots of times in the DEI space, after George Floyd, a lot of DEI executives were hired, but the funding there for the positions didn't exist, right? And so it makes the job even harder to kind of squeeze blood from a rock, right? So I always tell folks that want to get involved in my profession, when you start talking to employers, actually talk to them about what the budget might be for your department, and what the expectations are. Can we set tangible outcomes, and what the overall goal and mission of the organization actually is, right? As for an organization like Rise and Ground, it's made it a lot easier because I have support from leadership. I have a staff that really truly cares about the work and want to get better at providing the services. And also, a lot of our staff is willing to recognize that they have a personal experience that kind of shaped their lens, but they also have an experience that's affected by systems. And how can they split those two things apart to really analyze what's going on, and how can they navigate that to provide the best services possible for our folks?
The advantage of having this particular part of your administration, having diversity, equity, fairness, what has it been like for you?
So Travis has been a long time in coming. He doesn't know that, obviously, because he wasn't there for that part. There was a lot of work that our organization has been doing for a number of years in the diversity, fairness, and belonging space, all driven initially, before he's arrived, by volunteers, right? All of us deciding that this is really an important thing for an organization like us. 93% of the people who work for us are people of color. The vast majority of the people who we support are people of color. We represent a lot of people in the LGBTQ community. We have a whole array of what diversity means. And so, but now having him is to have a thought partner, to have a thought leader, to have somebody who brings a professional experience to the efforts that we've been putting forward, is wonderful. It's really joyful to me personally, right, to get to interact with him, to have conversations, to poke challenges where they should be had, is really wonderful. And I think that while I don't know that Rise will be able to change, some of these issues. No, sorry. All of these issues are so big, right? They are a true. Racism is a cancer that is embedded in our makeup, sadly, and it's not going to be fixed tomorrow. Right. But what I think we can do is we can take this one organization, invest really heavily about trying to change approaches, minds, actions, and we can make a difference here, and we can also be, I guess, a great example beyond our immediate impact.
I want to ask a question. We talked about runaway youth earlier. Certainly we can't divulge everything, but is there a particular thing that we're hearing from our youth when we talk about runaway youth and services? Or somebody says, why are kids running away from home? Or is there anything that we can learn, we can glean?
Of course, every individual's situation is
different
for them, and particular for them. But generally, it's about communication and understanding, right? A willingness to listen to young people, to acknowledge the strengths and capacities they have, and the voice that they're expressing. And I think when that doesn't happen well, it leads to frictions, and those frictions then sometimes can take a life of their own.
Right. Yeah. I want to kind of let you out because when we talk about this, right, you talk about that at that level with young people, CI mushrooms, and now we've got a lot of societal issues that are just based on lack of communication or being heard or being that. But, congratulations for the work that you do. If somebody's out there watching and saying, listen, how do I get connected? What do they do?
Very easy. www.risingground.org. You can find information about the services that we provide. You can find information about employment opportunities. You can learn about becoming a foster parent. We are welcome you and your support and engagement in our work in every possible way.
Yeah. And what kind of conversations are you having nowadays with the employees?
It's a great question, because today we talked about racism and systemic racism, and actually boiled it down to actual examples from lived experiences involving schools, right? And so how the school system's operating as a form of oppression for kids of color. That was a conversation today. A conversation tomorrow that we're having about in a DEI world is about inclusivity, and how do we create an atmosphere at work where we're inclusive to our non-binary colleagues, right? And so there's just multiple conversations that need to be had about inclusion, acceptance, affirming people, and really pressing forward in this work.
Yeah, I hear a lot. One of the things that is a pet peeve of mine. I always get irked by people saying, "We gotta have conversations, and then there's never a space for it, right? Or we say, "Oh, we need to talk," and we never get around to talking, right? But then at the end of the day,
we have a lot of those conversations at Rising Ground.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we have an anti-racism working group that Alan sits on, that many people of our leadership sit on, and they talk about policies and practices as it pertains to race and equity in the organization.
I would just say it's important to have a space for conversation, and then it's also important to take conversation and try to make it into action.
Yeah, that's what
and that's the biggest thing, right? I mean, we could have a conversation until we blue in the face, but if there's no action behind the conversation.
And not all action has to be huge, right? You can sometimes it's best to just start, what is the low-hanging fruit? Let's make some little progress. Let that progress become an example about what's possible. Let's learn from that and do the next thing. And so one of the things that is wonderful about having Travis join us is he's got the same approach that many of our leaders do, which is this has got to become real.
Right.
Yeah.
We got to walk the walk.
Yeah, I teach this in leadership circles that I'm in. I say you celebrate small victories. You have small victories.
All the small ones.
And then guess what? You have large ones, and then you get to a place where you can do some great big things. But you guys are doing the great and the small. Thank you so much for being with us, Al and Travis.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Glad to have you.
All right.
All right.